An ordinary tourist opened the wrong hotel door, but found the billionaire who changed her life. The keycard beeped green, and Lena Martinez pushed open the door with her shoulder dragging her worn backpack behind her. Exhaustion weighed heavy on her bones after 18 hours of flight's layovers and missed connections. All she wanted was to collapse onto whatever bed awaited her in this budget hotel room and sleep for the next 12 hours. But the scene that greeted her made her freeze in the doorway. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a breathtaking view of Sydney's harbor, where yacht lights twinkled like scattered diamonds against the dark water. A bottle of champagne sat in an ice bucket beside a king-sized bed draped in silk sheets that probably cost more than Lena's entire 3-month backpacking budget. This was definitely not the cramped hostel room she'd booked. "Oh my God!" she whispered, taking a step backward. "I'm in the wrong—" "Who are you?" The voice came from the shadows near the window. Lena's heart slammed against her ribs as a figure stepped into the light. A woman around her age with platinum blonde hair swept into an elegant updo, wearing a silk robe that moved like liquid mercury. Even in the dim lighting, everything about her screamed wealth and refinement. But it was her eyes that caught Lena off guard. Despite the sharp edge in her voice, those green eyes held a loneliness so profound it made Lena's chest ache with recognition. "I'm so sorry," Lena stammered, clutching her backpack straps. "The keycard worked, but I must have gotten the wrong room number. I'll just—" "Wait." The woman's voice softened slightly. "You're American." "Yeah, from Denver. Look, I'm really sorry about this. I've been traveling for almost 20 hours and I'm completely brain-fried. I'll call the front desk and sort this out." The stranger studied her for a long moment, and Lena became acutely aware of how she must look. Wrinkled clothes, messy ponytail, the faint smell of airplane food probably clinging to her jacket. "What's your name?" the woman asked unexpectedly. Lena Martinez. "I'm Isabel." A pause. "Isabel Rothschild." Even in her exhausted state, Lena recognized the name. Rothschild Industries. Luxury hotels, high-end real estate, enough wealth to buy small countries. She'd stumbled into the room of one of the richest women in Australia. "Oh, wow," Lena breathed. "I really shouldn't be here. This is mortifying." But instead of calling security or demanding she leave immediately, Isabel tilted her head with something that might have been curiosity. "Where were you supposed to be staying?" "The Backpackers Inn down the street. Nothing fancy, just a bed and a shower." Lena shifted nervously. "I saved for 2 years to afford this trip to Australia. 3 months of seeing everything I can on basically no budget." Something flickered across Isabel's face, surprise, maybe even intrigue. 2 years to save for a backpacking trip. "Yeah, I work. Well worked, 2 jobs. Coffee shop during the day, restaurant at night. Finally quit both last week to do this." Lena found herself smiling despite the awkwardness. "My friends think I'm crazy for spending all my money on travel instead of saving for a car or apartment. But life's too short, you know." Isabel was quiet for so long that Lena wondered if she'd said something wrong. Then, unexpectedly, the billionaire's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Life's too short," Isabel repeated softly. "I haven't heard anyone say that in a very long time." The moment stretched between them, filled with an odd tension that Lena couldn't name. Here she was, broke and disheveled, standing in a luxury suite with a woman who could probably buy the entire hotel without checking her bank balance. It should have been uncomfortable, embarrassing even. Instead, it felt like the beginning of something extraordinary. Neither of them knew it yet, but this accidental encounter would become the story that millions would share, cry over, and remember, as proof that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with the simplest mistakes. Lena fumbled for her phone with shaking hands. "I should really call the front desk and figure out what happened with my room assignment." "Don't." The word came out sharper than Isabel intended. Both women stared at each other in surprise. "I mean," Isabel said more softly, "it's nearly midnight. The front desk staff will just shuffle you between departments and make you wait in the lobby for hours. These mix-ups happen more often than you'd think. Lena hesitated, phone halfway to her ear. Something in Isabel's voice suggested this offer came from a place deeper than mere courtesy. Besides, Isabel continued moving to the champagne bucket. When was the last time you had Dom Perignon? Never. Lena laughed, despite herself. I'm more of a $2 wine kind of girl. Perfect. Then you'll appreciate it properly? Isabel's fingers worked the cork with practiced ease. Most people who can afford it don't even taste it anymore. The champagne opened with a soft pop, and Isabel poured 2 glasses with the fluid grace of someone raised in boardrooms and charity galas. She offered one to Lena, who took it hesitantly. I can't just drink champagne in your hotel room. You don't even know me. I know you've been traveling for 20 hours. I know you saved for 2 years to take this trip. I know you chose experiences over security. Isabel raised her glass. I know more about you in 5 minutes than most people reveal in months. Lena felt heat rise in her cheeks. You make me sound way more interesting than I am. Do I? Isabel's green eyes held hers. Tell me about these 2 jobs you worked. Seriously, it's not exactly fascinating conversation. But Lena found herself settling onto the edge of an impossibly comfortable armchair. Morningside Coffee on Colfax Avenue, 5 a.m. to noon. Then Benedetti's Italian restaurant, 5 p.m. to close. Sometimes I'd have maybe 30 minutes between shifts to grab food and change clothes. 7 days a week. 6. Sundays I slept and did laundry. Lena took a sip of champagne and nearly gasped. It was like drinking liquid starlight. But it was worth it. Every blister, every double shift, every time I fell asleep standing up, all worth it for this. Isabel watched her with an intensity that made Lena's skin tingle. Most people would have given up. Most people have other options. Lena shrugged. My parents died in a car accident when I was 19. No college fund, no inheritance, just me and whatever I could make happen. So when I decided I wanted to see the world, she gestured around the luxurious room. Well, this is definitely not how I planned to see it. But hey, I'm adaptable. The silence that followed was different from before, heavier, loaded with unspoken understanding. I'm sorry about your parents, Isabel said quietly. Thank you. It was 6 years ago, but some days it still feels like yesterday. Lena studied Isabel's face. What about you? Do your parents know you're drinking champagne with random backpackers who break into your hotel room? Something shuddered in Isabel's expression. My parents know exactly where I am every moment of every day. It's part of their business model. Business model. Controlling the Rothschild heir. The words came out bitter. My location, my schedule, my companions, my conversations, everything monitored, managed, optimized for maximum corporate benefit. Lena set down her champagne glass. That sounds horrible. It's efficient. But Isabel's voice cracked slightly on the word. I have a net worth that most countries would envy, but I can't have a conversation with a stranger without 3 security assessments and a background check. Is that why you're alone in Sydney? I'm never alone. There are 6 security personnel in this hotel right now, 3 assistants on call, and a rotating team of handlers who manage my public interactions. Isabel's laugh held no humor. But yes, I'm completely alone. The contradiction hit Lena like a physical blow. Here was someone who had everything money could buy, but none of the simple freedoms Lena took for granted. When was the last time you just talked to someone? Really talked without agenda or security clearance or whatever? Isabel was quiet for so long that Lena thought she wouldn't answer. Then, barely above a whisper, I can't remember. The admission hung between them raw and vulnerable. Lena felt something shift in her chest, a recognition, maybe even the first stirring of something deeper. Well, she said, raising her champagne glass again, lucky for you, I'm excellent at talking to strangers. It's basically a professional requirement when you work in coffee shops and restaurants. For the first time since Lena had entered the room, Isabel's smile looked genuine. Lucky for me? Neither woman realized it, but this moment, two strangers sharing champagne and honest words in a luxury hotel suite would become the foundation of a love story that would captivate millions and prove that sometimes the most profound connections happen when we least expect them. The night was just beginning. "So what brings you to Sydney?" Lena asked, settling more comfortably into the plush armchair. The champagne was making her bold, or maybe it was the surreal nature of the entire situation. "Business." Isabel's answer was automatic, rehearsed. Then she paused, looking surprised at herself. "Actually, that's not entirely true. I'm supposed to be here for the Pacific Rim Economic Summit, but mostly I just needed to get away from Melbourne for a few days." "Away from what?" Isabel moved to the window, her silk robe catching the harbor lights. "My engagement party is next weekend." The words hit Lena like cold water. "Oh, congratulations." "Thank you." But there was no joy in Isabel's voice. "His name is Charles Whitmore, heir to Whitmore Maritime. Our families have been planning this union since we were teenagers." "Union?" Lena couldn't hide her surprise. "You make it sound like a business merger." "Because that's exactly what it is." Isabel traced patterns on the glass with her finger. "Charles is perfectly suitable. Well-educated, appropriate family connections, compatible investment portfolios. We've known each other for years. Do you love him?" The question slipped out before Lena could stop herself. She watched Isabel's shoulders tense. "Love is a luxury I can't afford," Isabel said finally. "My responsibilities to the company, to our employees, to the family legacy, those matter more than personal feelings." "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard." Isabel turned from the window, her green eyes flashing. "Is it, I'll have security, stability, a partnership that benefits thousands of people? How is that sad? Because you're talking about marriage like it's a business contract." Lena stood champagne, making her braver than usual. "Where's the excitement, the butterflies, the feeling like you can't breathe when he walks into a room?" "Butterflies are hardly a solid foundation for a lifelong commitment. Maybe not, but they're a pretty good indicator that you actually want to be with someone." Lena moved closer, drawn by the pain she could see behind Isabel's composed facade. "Have you ever been in love? Really, truly butterflies and sleepless nights in love?" Isabel was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. "I don't think I'm capable of it." "Why would you say that?" "Because I've never felt anything close to what you're describing. Not with Charles, not with anyone." Isabel's hands trembled slightly as she set down her champagne. "Maybe some people are just built differently. Maybe some of us are meant for practical arrangements instead of passionate connections." Lena's heart ached at the resignation in Isabel's voice. "Or maybe you just haven't met the right person yet." "The right person?" Isabel laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Lena, I've been introduced to every eligible bachelor in 3 countries. I've attended charity galas, symphony premieres, yacht club dinners. I've met princes and politicians and tech moguls. If the right person existed in my world, I would have found him by now. What if the right person isn't in your world?" The question hung between them, loaded with implications neither woman was quite ready to acknowledge. Isabel stared at Lena, and something electric passed between them, a recognition, a possibility, a door opening to something neither had expected. "That's impossible," Isabel whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" Lena took another step closer. "Maybe the right person is someone who saves for 2 years just to see the world. Someone who works double shifts and chooses experiences over security. Someone who accidentally walks into the wrong hotel room and changes everything." Isabel's breath caught. "Lena!" "I'm not saying I'm the right person," Lena said quickly, though her heart was racing. "I'm just saying, maybe you've been looking in the wrong places." They stood there in the soft light from the harbor, 2 women from completely different worlds, feeling something neither could quite name building between them. It was dangerous and impossible, and absolutely terrifying. It was also the most real thing either of them had felt in years. "Tell me about your trip," Isabel said suddenly, as if desperate to change the subject. "What made you choose Australia?" Lena recognized the deflection, but allowed it settling back into her chair. "I've always been fascinated by places that are completely different from home. Australia seemed like another planet, different seasons, different stars, different everything. Plus, I figured if I was going to spend all my money on one trip, it should be somewhere I might never afford to visit again." "Where else are you planning to go?" "Everywhere I can manage on $40 a day." Lena grinned. "Melbourne, Brisbane, maybe Alice Springs if I can catch a cheap flight. The Blue Mountains, definitely. I want to see Uluru, but that might blow my budget." "Uluru is extraordinary," Isabel said softly. "The way the light changes the color of the rock throughout the day. It's like watching the earth breathe." "You've been there?" "Several times. Rothschild Industries has interests in mining and tourism throughout the outback." Isabel paused. "But I've never seen it the way you would." "What do you mean?" "You would see it with fresh eyes. Wonder, excitement." Isabel's voice grew wistful. "I see it through spreadsheets and profit margins and environmental impact assessments. I haven't looked at anything with genuine wonder in, God, maybe ever." Lena felt that ache in her chest again, the one that came from recognizing profound loneliness in another person. "It's not too late, you know. Wonder isn't something you lose permanently. It just gets buried under other things. Other things like responsibilities and expectations and family obligations. Exactly those things." Lena leaned forward. "But they don't have to define your entire life. You could take a day just one day and see Sydney like a tourist instead of a business executive. No agenda, no schedule, just exploration." Isabel looked skeptical. "I have meetings starting at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Cancel them." "I can't just—" "Why not you own the company, don't you? Being in charge should come with some perks." "It's not that simple." "Isn't it?" Lena challenged. "What's the worst thing that would happen if Isabel Rothschild took one day off to be a human being instead of a corporate entity?" Isabel opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. She looked genuinely confused, as if the concept of personal time was completely foreign to her. "I wouldn't even know where to start," she admitted finally. "Lucky for you," Lena said, echoing Isabel's earlier words. "I'm excellent at being a tourist. It's basically my only qualification for this trip." The offer hung in the air between them, fraught with possibility and danger. Lena couldn't believe she'd suggested it. Spending a day with a billionaire heiress was so far outside her realm of experience, it might as well have been space travel. But the loneliness in Isabel's eyes called to something deep in Lena's chest, something that recognized kindred spirits, even across impossible divides. "One day," Isabel said quietly, almost to herself. "One day," Lena confirmed. "No security assessments, no background checks, no handlers. Just two women exploring a beautiful city." Isabel met her eyes, and Lena saw something she hadn't noticed before, a flicker of rebellion, of hunger, for something real and unmanaged, and entirely her own. "Okay," Isabel whispered. Neither woman knew it yet, but this single word would change both their lives forever. This moment of connection, this decision to trust a stranger, would become the first chapter in a love story that would inspire millions and prove that sometimes the most extraordinary things begin with the simplest choices. The night was still young, but already everything had changed. "Okay," Lena repeated, hardly believing what she'd heard. "You'll actually do it." Isabel looked as surprised as Lena felt. "I think, yes. One day, tomorrow." She ran a hand through her perfectly styled hair, messing it for the first time since Lena had met her. "God, I can't believe I just said that. Are you having second thoughts?" "I'm having third and fourth thoughts," Isabel admitted, but there was something lighter in her voice now, almost giddy. "My assistant is going to have an aneurysm. There are 17 people expecting me at various meetings tomorrow. So we'll make it worth the chaos," Lena said, excitement building in her chest. "What time do you usually wake up?" 5:30. Workout at 6, breakfast meeting at 7:30, first official appointment at 8. Lena winced. Okay, we're definitely changing that schedule. What if I meet you in the lobby at 9? We'll grab coffee somewhere that doesn't require reservations and just see what happens. Just see what happens. Isabel repeated the phrase like she was testing a foreign language. I haven't done anything without a detailed itinerary in 15 years. Then you're overdue for some spontaneity. Lena grinned. Fair warning, though, I have exactly $43.27 in Australian money to last me the next 4 days in Sydney. So our adventure is going to be decidedly budget-friendly. $43, Isabel murmured. I spend more than that on coffee. Really? Wow. Okay, well, tomorrow you'll discover the joy of $7 cafe lattes and free museum admission. Something shifted in Isabel's expression, and Lena caught a glimpse of what she might have looked like as a child, curious, eager, unguarded. Will you tell me something? Isabel asked suddenly. Sure. What does it feel like not knowing what's going to happen next? The question was so earnest, so vulnerable, that Lena felt her throat tighten with emotion. Terrifying, she said honestly, but also exciting, like standing at the edge of a cliff knowing you're about to jump but not knowing if you'll fly or fall. And you choose that feeling over security and predictability, every single time. Lena met Isabel's eyes. Because the alternative is never really living at all. It's just existing safely. I've been existing safely for 28 years, Isabel said quietly. Well, tomorrow we change that. They stood there smiling at each other, and Lena felt something warm and unfamiliar unfurling in her chest. It wasn't just attraction, though she was beginning to admit that Isabel was the most beautiful woman she'd ever seen. It was something deeper, a connection, a recognition of shared loneliness, the thrilling possibility of discovering something neither of them had been looking for. I should probably try to get some sleep, Lena said reluctantly, glancing at the clock. It was nearly 1 a.m. And you should probably figure out how to cancel 17 meetings without causing an international incident. Probably. But Isabel made no move toward the phone. Will you really do it? Cancel everything, I mean? Isabel was quiet for a moment, then nodded with growing certainty. Yes, I will. She paused. What changed my mind was what you said about wonder. I realized I can't remember the last time I looked forward to anything, really looked forward to it, not just endured it or managed it. And now I can barely sleep thinking about tomorrow. Isabel's smile was radiant. I feel like a teenager planning to sneak out of the house. Lena laughed. Did you ever actually sneak out as a teenager? Are you kidding? I had a bodyguard and a curfew and boarding school supervisors watching my every move? Isabel's eyes sparkled with mischief. But I always wondered what it would feel like. Well, tomorrow you get to find out. Better late than never, right? Better late than never, Isabel agreed. Lena reluctantly gathered her backpack, though. Leaving felt like the hardest thing she'd done all day. 9 a.m. lobby. 9 a.m. lobby. Isabel confirmed. And Lena, thank you. For tonight, for tomorrow, for showing me something I didn't know I was missing. Thank you for not calling security when a random American barged into your hotel room. Best mistake I ever made, Isabel said softly. As Lena walked toward the door, she felt like she was floating. This entire evening felt like a dream. The wrong room, the champagne, the conversation that had revealed so much about both of them, and now this impossible plan to spend tomorrow together. At the door, she turned back one more time. Isabel stood silhouetted against the harbor lights, looking younger and more alive than she had all evening. Isabel. Yes, I'm really glad I'm terrible with room numbers. Isabel's laugh followed Lena all the way down the hall to her actual room, a tiny space with a narrow bed and a window facing an alley, but suddenly it felt like the most wonderful place in the world. Neither woman slept much that night. Both lay awake, thinking about the day ahead, about the connection they'd felt, about the dangerous and wonderful possibility that sometimes the most beautiful things in life happen when you least expect them. Tomorrow would change everything. Neither of them knew just how much. Lena stood in the hotel lobby at exactly 9 a.m., wearing her cleanest jeans and the one nice top she'd packed for her entire 3-month trip. She'd been awake since dawn, alternating between excitement and panic about spending a day with someone who probably owned more shoes than Lena had dollars. At 9:03, she began to worry that Isabel had changed her mind. At 9:05, she started composing the gracious text message she'd send to let Isabel off the hook. At 9:07, the elevator doors opened and Isabel stepped out, and Lena forgot how to breathe. Gone were the silk robe and perfect updo from last night. Instead, Isabel wore dark jeans that fit like they'd been tailored specifically for her body, a soft cream sweater that brought out the green in her eyes, and white sneakers that probably cost more than Lena's monthly rent, but looked effortlessly casual. Her hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders, and she wore minimal makeup that somehow made her look both approachable and devastatingly beautiful. "Hi," Isabel said, and there was something shy in her voice that made Lena's heart skip. "Hi yourself. You look—" Lena searched for words that wouldn't make her sound like a babbling idiot. "You look perfect for a day of tourist adventures. I had to guess what normal people wear for spontaneous city exploration," Isabel admitted with a smile. "I may have asked my assistant to research appropriate casual attire for budget tourism activities." "You researched how to dress like a normal person. Is that terrible?" Isabel looked suddenly uncertain. "I have 3 closets full of designer clothing, but 90% of it is for board meetings, charity galas, or publicity events. I couldn't remember the last time I dressed for fun." The admission was so endearing that Lena felt warmth spread through her chest. "It's not terrible. It's actually kind of adorable. And for the record, you nailed it." Isabel's smile could have powered the entire hotel. "So where are we starting this grand adventure?" "Coffee," Lena declared. "Real Sydney coffee, not hotel room service. I spotted a place called Bluestone Lane about 2 blocks from here that looked promising." "Bluestone Lane," Isabel repeated. "I've never heard of it." "Perfect. No reservations, no special treatment, just good coffee and whatever conversation happens naturally." They walked out of the hotel together, and Lena noticed that Isabel kept glancing around, as if she expected to see security personnel lurking in doorways. "They're really not following us?" Lena asked. "I may have told my security team that I was feeling unwell and would be staying in my room all day with strict instructions not to be disturbed," Isabel said with a mischievous grin that transformed her entire face. "Isabel Rothschild, you lied to your bodyguards. I prefer to think of it as creative scheduling." Isabel's eyes sparkled. "Though I did turn off my phone's location services for the first time in ever." "How does it feel?" "Terrifying and exhilarating," Isabel admitted. "Like I'm invisible. Like I could be anyone." They walked the 2 blocks to Bluestone Lane, and Lena watched Isabel take in everything, the street art on building walls, the sounds of morning traffic, the smell of fresh bread from a bakery they passed. It was like watching someone see color for the first time. "You're staring at everything," Lena observed. "I'm trying to see it the way you would," Isabel said. "Usually when I'm walking through the city, I'm on my phone or reviewing documents or mentally preparing for the next meeting. I never actually look at anything." "What do you see now?" Isabel stopped walking and really looked around them. "That mural on the coffee shop wall, it's beautiful. The way the artist used blues and greens to create movement. It's like watching water flow upward." She pointed to a small garden squeezed between 2 buildings. "And those flowers, are those jasmine?" "The smell is incredible. See, you do know how to notice things. You just needed to slow down long enough to try." They reached Bluestone Lane, a small cafe with mismatched furniture and handwritten menu boards. The line was already 6 people deep, with locals grabbing their morning caffeine. "This is where normal people get coffee," Lena explained as they joined the queue. "No table service, no reservations, and if you want sugar, you add it yourself from the little station over there." Isabel looked around with fascination. Everyone seems so relaxed, casual. They're not networking or making deals or positioning themselves for advantage. They're just getting coffee before work or meeting friends or starting their day. Lena agreed. Revolutionary concept, right? More revolutionary than you know. When they reached the counter, Lena ordered her usual a cappuccino, and whatever pastry looked good. Isabel hesitated, clearly out of her element. What do you usually drink? Lena asked. Ethiopian single-origin pour-over with steamed oat milk, no foam, served at exactly 65 degrees Celsius. Isabel recited automatically. The barista. A guy with colorful tattoos and a friendly smile laughed. We've got great coffee, but our precision level tops out at hot and really hot. How about I make you the best flat white you've ever had? Isabel looked panicked, as if ordering coffee without specific parameters might result in international chaos. She'll take the flat white, Lena said gently, and surprise us with whatever pastry you recommend. Done. That'll be $18 total. Lena reached for her wallet, but Isabel was faster, handing over a $20 bill with the wonder of someone discovering fire. I just ordered coffee without a detailed consultation, Isabel whispered as they found a small table by the window. And I have no idea what I'm going to get. How does it feel? Like I might spontaneously combust from the uncertainty. Isabel grinned. I love it. Their coffee arrived, Lena's cappuccino perfectly foamed, Isabel's flat white, accompanied by 2 enormous croissants that looked like they'd been baked by angels. Isabel took her first sip and closed her eyes. Oh my God. Good. It's perfect. Not because it meets specific parameters, but because it tastes like... She searched for words. Like Saturday morning. Like possibility. Like the beginning of something wonderful. Lena felt her heart skip at the expression on Isabel's face, pure, uncomplicated joy over something as simple as good coffee. So, what's next on our agenda? Isabel asked, tearing off a piece of croissant and offering it to Lena. That's the beauty of spontaneous exploration, Lena said, accepting the pastry and trying not to think about how intimate the gesture felt. We make it up as we go. Isabel laughed, and the sound was so different from her polite social laughter the night before. This was real, unguarded, completely genuine. I have never made anything up as I went along in my entire life, she admitted. Then today is full of firsts. Lena raised her coffee cup. To spontaneity, good coffee, and the art of making it up as we go. To new experiences, Isabel agreed, touching her cup to Lena's, and the best mistake I ever made. As they sat in that little cafe sharing pastries, and discovering that conversation flowed as easily as it had the night before, both women felt something shifting inside them. The connection they'd felt in the hotel room was growing stronger, more undeniable, more dangerous. Neither was ready to name it yet, but both could feel it, the unmistakable pull of 2 souls, recognizing their perfect match, even across impossible circumstances. The day was just beginning, but already everything had changed. After finishing their coffee and croissants, they stepped back onto the Sydney streets with no plan except to explore. Lena pulled out her budget travel guidebook, a worn paperback she'd bought secondhand, and Isabel watched with fascination as she flipped through dog-eared pages covered in handwritten notes. What are all those marks? Isabel asked, leaning closer to see. Research. Lena explained, trying not to notice how Isabel's perfume mixed with the morning air. Free activities, cheap eats, must-see spots that won't break the budget. I've been planning this trip for 2 years, every dollar accounted for, every day mapped out to maximize experiences while minimizing costs. Show me, Isabel said, genuine curiosity in her voice. Lena opened to the Sydney section, revealing pages covered in colored highlighter sticky notes and careful annotations. Yellow is free activities, green is under $10, pink is splurge items I'll only do if I have money left over. What's pink in Sydney? Harbor Bridge, climb Blue Mountains, tour fancy dinner somewhere with actual tablecloths. Lena laughed. Definitely not happening on my budget, but a girl can dream. Isabel studied the pages with the intensity she usually reserved for corporate reports. You've thought of everything. Backup plans, alternative routes, even weather contingencies. When you're traveling on basically no money planning isn't optional, one wrong choice and I could blow my entire budget in a day. Lena closed the book. But that's the fun part too, making every dollar count, finding amazing experiences that don't cost anything. Like what? Like this. Lena gestured around them. Walking through the city, people watching, discovering neighborhoods that aren't in the tourist brochures. The best parts of travel are usually free. They wandered through the historic Rocks district, and Lena watched Isabel's face as she took in the weekend market stalls, street performers, and centuries-old architecture. Everything seemed to fascinate her, the way vendors called out to customers, children chasing bubbles from a street performer's show, elderly couples sharing morning tea at outdoor cafe tables. It's like watching a movie, Isabel said, as they paused to listen to a musician playing guitar near the harbor. All these people living their lives completely unaware that anyone's watching. What do you mean? Usually when I'm out in public, everyone's watching me. Not obviously, it's all very discreet, but there are photographers, social media posts, people recording everything I do for security purposes or publicity or gossip. I can never just observe. Lena felt that familiar ache in her chest at the isolation in Isabel's voice. That sounds exhausting. I thought it was normal until today. Isabel dropped a $5 note into the musician's guitar case, smiling when he nodded his thanks. This is the first time I've been anonymous in maybe ever. They continued walking, eventually finding themselves at the opera house. Lena had planned to admire it from the outside. Tickets to actual performances were way beyond her budget, but Isabel stopped at the information desk. Are there any tours available today? She asked the cheerful woman behind the counter. We have a behind-the-scenes tour starting in 20 minutes, the woman replied. $35 per person. Lena started to shake her head. $70 would devastate her remaining budget, but Isabel was already pulling out her credit card. My treat, she said quietly to Lena. Please, I want to see it through your eyes. Isabel, I can't let you... You bought me the best cup of coffee I've ever had for $9. Let me return the favor. That's not the same thing, and you know it. Isabel's expression grew serious. Lena, I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, but I've never had someone show me how to see wonder in ordinary things. Please let me do this. The sincerity in her voice made Lena's protests die in her throat. Okay, but this is the only splurge deal. Deal. The tour was revelation. Their guide, Marcus, was a theater student who worked part-time at the opera house and spoke about the building with infectious passion. He led them through rehearsal rooms where world-class musicians practiced backstage areas, where sets were constructed, and finally onto the main stage where countless legends had performed. Stand here, Marcus instructed, positioning them center stage. Look out at those seats and imagine 2,000 people waiting to hear what you have to say. Lena felt dizzy looking out at the empty auditorium, but Isabel seemed transfixed. What would you perform? Lena asked her quietly. I don't have any performance talents, Isabel replied. I was trained in business skills, not creative ones. Everyone has creative talents. What did you love to do as a child before business training took over? Isabel was quiet for a long moment. I used to write stories, she said, finally. Little tales about girls who went on adventures, who made their own choices, who fell in love with people their parents would never approve of. What happened to that reality, responsibility, the understanding that Rothschild heirs don't waste time on frivolous pursuits? But there was longing in Isabel's voice. I sometimes wonder what those girls in my stories would think of the woman I became. Maybe they'd think she was overdue for her own adventure, Lena suggested softly. Their eyes met across the empty stage, and something electric passed between them. The moment stretched loaded with possibility and desire, and the growing awareness that what was happening between them was far more than friendship. All right, folks, let's continue the tour, Marcus called, breaking the spell. But as they followed him deeper into the opera house, both women felt the shift. The easy companionship of the morning was evolving into something more intense, more dangerous, more impossible to ignore. When they finally emerged back into the Sydney sunshine, Isabel checked her phone for the first time all day. 17 missed calls, she said, but didn't sound concerned. My assistant, my mother Charles, 3 board members, and someone from the Pacific Rim Summit. Do you need to— No. Isabel turned off the phone decisively. Whatever crisis they think requires my immediate attention survived without me for 4 hours. It can survive a few more. Lena stared at her. You're really not going to call them back. I'm really not going to call them back. Isabel's smile was radiant. What's next on our spontaneous adventure? As they walked away from the opera house together, neither woman realized that Isabel's assistant was already mobilizing a search team. Neither knew that Charles Whitmore was becoming increasingly agitated about his fiancée's disappearance. Neither could predict that their perfect day was about to collide with the very reality Isabel was trying to escape. But for now, in this moment, walking through Sydney with growing feelings, neither was ready to name. They were simply 2 women discovering that sometimes the most extraordinary connections happen when you're brave enough to step outside your carefully planned life. The afternoon stretched ahead of them full of promise and possibility, and growing danger. They spent the afternoon like proper tourists taking the ferry across the harbor to Manly Beach. Lena had allocated $15 for transportation in her budget, and the $8 ferry ride felt like a perfect splurge. As Sydney's skyline shrunk behind them, and the Pacific Ocean opened ahead, Isabel stood at the railing with an expression of pure wonder. I can't remember the last time I was on a boat for pleasure instead of business, she said, salt wind whipping her hair around her face. Usually it's yacht meetings or corporate harbor cruises with networking objectives. What's it like when you can just enjoy something without objectives? Lena asked, joining her at the railing. Liberating, terrifying, like I'm learning a new language. Isabel turned to her with bright eyes. Is this what normal feels like? I don't know if there is a normal, Lena replied honestly. But this feels right. At Manly Beach, they walked barefoot along the sand, carrying their shoes and talking about everything and nothing. Isabel confessed her secret love of terrible reality TV shows. Lena shared stories from her restaurant job about the strange things people did on dates. They bought fish and chips from a beachside vendor and ate sitting on a seawall watching surfers catch waves. I have a confession, Isabel said as she stole another chip from Lena's container. What's that? This is the most fun I've had in possibly ever, and I have no idea what that says about my life. Lena studied her profile, the elegant line of her jaw, the way afternoon sunlight brought out gold highlights in her hair, the genuine happiness that had replaced the guarded politeness from the night before. Maybe it says you're ready for a different kind of life, Lena suggested carefully. A different kind of life, Isabel repeated thoughtfully. What would that even look like? I don't know. What would you want it to look like? Isabel was quiet for so long that Lena thought she wouldn't answer. Then, barely above a whisper. Mornings without scheduled breakfast meetings. Coffee that tastes like Saturday morning instead of efficiency. Conversations that aren't calculated for strategic advantage. She paused. Someone to share it with who sees me as Isabel, not as the Rothschild heir. The longing in her voice made Lena's chest tight. That person exists. Does she? Isabel's green eyes met hers. Because I'm starting to think she might be sitting right here, and that's the most wonderful and impossible thing I can imagine. The admission hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they should cross. Lena felt her heart hammering against her ribs as she recognized the invitation in Isabel's words. Isabel? I know it's crazy, Isabel said quickly. I know we just met. I know we're from completely different worlds. I know there are 1,000 reasons why this is impossible, but I can't stop thinking that maybe impossible things happen for a reason. Lena reached out without thinking, covering Isabel's hand with her own. The touch sent electricity shooting up her arm. What are you saying? I'm saying that in 24 hours you've shown me more about who I actually am than 28 years of carefully managed existence. I'm saying that when I look at you, I feel something I thought I was incapable of feeling. Isabel's voice grew stronger, more certain. I'm saying that I think I'm falling for you, and I have no idea what to do about it. Lena's breath caught. She looked at their joined hands, at Isabel's face, open and vulnerable in the afternoon light, at the impossible situation they were creating. "I'm falling for you too," she whispered. "And it's terrifying because I leave for Melbourne in 3 days, and you're engaged to someone else and we live in completely different universes." "Then we have 3 days," Isabel said with sudden, fierce determination. 3 days to figure out if what we're feeling is real or just vacation madness. And if it's real, then we figure out how to make the impossible possible. They sat there on the seawall, hands linked, looking into each other's eyes as waves crashed below them. The moment felt suspended in time, precious and fragile and absolutely perfect. Then Isabel's phone, which she'd turned back on to check the time, began ringing with an incoming call. Charles Whitmore's name flashed on the screen. "Don't answer it," Lena said impulsively. Isabel looked at the phone, then at Lena, then back at the phone. For a moment, Lena thought she would actually ignore it, that she would choose this moment over her obligations. Then reality crashed over both of them like a cold wave. "I have to," Isabel said quietly. "If I don't, he'll call my security team, and then this perfect day becomes an international incident." She answered on the 4th ring. "Hello, Charles." Even from a foot away, Lena could hear his voice through the phone, sharp, demanding, worried, in the way of someone whose property has gone missing. "Where the hell are you, Isabel? You missed 3 meetings today. Your assistant says you're ill, but hotel security confirmed you left the building this morning. Mother is beside herself." "I'm fine, Charles. I just needed some air." "Some air? You've been unreachable for 6 hours. The summit organizers are asking questions, and Father wants to know if we need to postpone the engagement party." Lena watched Isabel's face change as the weight of her real life settled back onto her shoulders. The open, joyful woman from moments before was disappearing behind the composed mask of the Rothschild heir. "No postponement necessary?" Isabel said, her voice becoming cooler, more professional. "I'll be at the hotel within the hour." "Good. We need to discuss the final details for Saturday. And Isabel, don't disappear like that again. It reflects poorly on both our families." The call ended, and silence stretched between them. Lena felt like she was watching Isabel retreat into a fortress walls going up with each passing second. "You have to go," Lena said, though it felt like swallowing glass. "I have to go," Isabel confirmed quietly. They caught the next ferry back to Circular Quay in subdued silence. The magic of the day felt fragile, now threatened by the reality of Isabel's obligations and the impossibility of their situation. As they walked back toward the hotel, Isabel suddenly stopped. "Tomorrow," she said urgently. "Meet me tomorrow, same time, same place." "Isabel, you heard him. Your fiancé, your family." "One more day," Isabel interrupted. "Please, we said 3 days to figure this out. Don't let them take that away from us." Lena looked into those green eyes, still bright with the afternoon's wonder, despite the shadows of obligation creeping back in. "One more day," she agreed. Neither woman knew that Charles Whitmore was already on a plane to Sydney, or that Isabel's mother had hired additional security to ensure her daughter's illness didn't interfere with the engagement party. Neither could predict that tomorrow would force them to choose between love and duty in ways they never imagined. But as they parted in the hotel lobby, both felt the same fierce determination. Whatever happened next, they would fight for these feelings, for this connection, for the possibility that love could conquer even the most impossible circumstances. The story that would captivate millions was just beginning to unfold. Lena barely slept that night, replaying every moment of their day together. The way Isabel had looked, discovering the opera house, her laugh on the ferry the moment she'd confessed her feelings on the beach. It all felt like a dream that was too perfect to be real. But the look in Isabel's eyes when Charles called had been real too. The way she'd retreated behind her composed mask, the resignation in her voice, when she'd said, "I have to go," that was the reality of loving someone whose life belonged to other people. At exactly 9 a.m., Lena waited in the lobby again, wearing the same outfit as yesterday, because it was literally the nicest thing she owned. She'd been there for 10 minutes when her phone buzzed with a text. Running late. Security meeting I couldn't avoid. Wait for me, please. Relief flooded through her. After yesterday's phone call, she'd half convinced herself that Isabel would come to her senses overnight and remember why billionaire heiresses didn't run off with broke backpackers. 20 minutes later, Isabel appeared, and Lena could immediately see the strain on her face. She was perfectly dressed and composed, as always, but there were dark circles under her eyes and tension in her shoulders that hadn't been there yesterday. "I'm sorry," Isabel said as soon as she reached her. "Charles arrived from Melbourne this morning, unannounced, with my mother and a security team and half the wedding planning committee." Lena's heart sank. "So I can't officially leave the hotel today, but—" Isabel's eyes sparked with familiar mischief. "How do you feel about room service and harbor views? Are you asking me to spend the day in your hotel room? I'm asking if you trust me to show you that even trapped in a gilded cage we can still have adventures." 30 minutes later, Lena found herself back in Isabel's suite, but this time everything was different. Room service had delivered what looked like a small feast, fresh fruit pastries, real Australian coffee, and delicacies Lena couldn't even identify. "I may have gone slightly overboard," Isabel admitted, gesturing at the spread. "I told them I was hosting an important cultural exchange meeting." "Cultural exchange? Well, you're American, I'm Australian, and we're definitely exchanging something important." Isabel's smile was soft, but heated. It wasn't technically a lie. They settled on the floor by the windows, using the coffee table as their dining surface. It should have felt awkward eating expensive food in a luxury suite, while an engagement party was being planned floors below, but instead it felt intimate, like they were creating their own private world. "Tell me something I don't know about you," Lena said, stealing a strawberry from the fruit arrangement. "I speak 4 languages fluently, but I've never used any of them for pleasure. Only business negotiations and diplomatic functions." Isabel poured them both coffee from an elegant silver service. "Your turn." "I can juggle, but only with citrus fruits. Something about the weight distribution." Lena grinned. "Learned it during a particularly boring summer working at a juice bar." "Show me. Here now. Please. I've never seen anyone juggle anything, let alone specifically citrus fruits." Lena grabbed 3 oranges from the fruit display and, feeling slightly ridiculous, began to juggle. Isabel watched with delight, clapping, when Lena managed to keep all 3 in the air for a full minute. "That's amazing. How do you make it look so effortless?" "Practice and desperation. Tips were better when you could entertain the customers." Lena caught all 3 oranges and set them down. "What's your hidden talent?" "I don't think I have any." "Everyone has hidden talents. What did you do for fun before your life became all business all the time?" Isabel thought for a moment. "I used to sneak into the hotel kitchens and bake with the pastry chefs. They taught me to make French macarons when I was 12. "You can make macarons?" "I could. I haven't touched a mixing bowl in 15 years, but I used to love the precision of it, the way chemistry and art came together to create something beautiful." "Why did you stop?" "Mother decided it was inappropriate for a Rothschild to engage in service industry activities. The kitchen staff was instructed not to encourage my hobby." The sadness in Isabel's voice was unmistakable. "That's horrible. Baking isn't service industry activity, it's creation. It's art. Try explaining that to a woman who thinks anything done with your hands instead of your intellect is beneath the family dignity." Lena felt anger flare in her chest, not at Isabel, but at the forces that had systematically stripped away every joy from her childhood until only duty remained. "What if I told you there's a kitchen in this hotel?" Lena said impulsively. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that Isabel Rothschild, international business mogul, might be mysteriously indisposed this afternoon, while Isabel the macaron artist remembers what it feels like to create something beautiful." Isabel stared at her. "You want to sneak into the hotel kitchen? I want to watch you remember who you are when nobody's watching. I want to see you covered in flour instead of board meeting stress. I want—" Lena paused, then continued more softly. "I want to give you back something that was taken away." The emotion that crossed Isabel's face was so intense that Lena thought she might cry, Instead, she stood up with sudden determination. "The executive chef here is Henri Dubois. I've known him for 10 years. He caters most of our corporate functions." Isabel was already reaching for her phone. "If anyone would let us use the kitchen, it would be Henri." "You're really going to do this?" "I'm really going to do this." Isabel's smile was radiant. "For the first time in 15 years, I'm going to bake something just because I want to." An hour later, they stood in the hotel's pristine professional kitchen, wearing borrowed chef coats and surrounded by ingredients Henri had enthusiastically provided. The kitchen staff had been given the afternoon off, leaving them completely alone in the gleaming space. "I can't believe I'm nervous," Isabel said, staring at the almond flour and powdered sugar Henri had measured out for them. "It's like riding a bicycle," Lena assured her, though she had absolutely no idea how to make macarons herself. "Your hands will remember." And they did. Once Isabel started measuring and mixing, something magical happened. The composed businesswoman disappeared, replaced by someone focused and creative, and absolutely in her element. She moved around the kitchen with growing confidence, explaining each step to Lena as muscle memory took over. "The key is the macaronage," Isabel said, carefully folding the dry ingredients into the meringue. "Too little, and they won't develop feet too much, and they'll be flat and chewy instead of light and crispy." Lena watched, mesmerized, as Isabel's hands worked the mixture with expert precision. There was something incredibly sexy about watching someone do something they were genuinely passionate about, and Lena found herself falling even harder. "You're staring," Isabel said without looking up from the bowl. "You're beautiful when you're in your element like this." Isabel paused her folding. "Am I in my element? I mean, completely. You look like yourself, not the version of yourself you present to board meetings or charity galas, but the real you. The one who loves creating beautiful things and gets excited about chemistry and precision." "I forgot," Isabel said quietly. "I forgot that I used to love making things with my hands. I forgot that there was a time when I chose to do something just because it brought me joy." "You're remembering now." "I'm remembering now." Isabel agreed, and when she looked up at Lena, her eyes were bright with tears. "Thank you. For this, for yesterday, for seeing parts of me I thought were lost forever." The moment hung between them, loaded with emotion and desire, and the growing certainty that what they felt for each other was far beyond a vacation romance. "Isabel," Lena said softly, taking a step closer. "Lena," Isabel whispered, and suddenly they were inches apart, covered in flour, surrounded by the smell of vanilla and almond extract and possibility. When Isabel leaned in and kissed her soft and tentative and perfect, Lena felt like every cliché about fireworks and butterflies was happening at once. The kiss deepened, and Lena could taste sweetness and hope and the promise of something extraordinary. They broke apart, breathless foreheads touching, and Lena realized that this moment, covered in baking ingredients in a hotel kitchen, kissing a woman who was supposed to marry someone else in 4 days, was the most perfect moment of her entire life. "We're in so much trouble," Isabel murmured against her lips. "The best kind of trouble," Lena agreed. Neither of them heard the kitchen door open. Neither noticed Henri returning early from his break, or saw him quietly retreat with a knowing smile. Neither realized that in that perfect moment, they'd crossed a line from which there would be no return. The macarons still needed to be baked, but something much more important was already perfectly done. They spent the next 2 hours creating the most beautiful batch of lavender honey macarons either of them had ever seen. More importantly, they spent those hours talking and laughing and stealing kisses between timer alerts, creating a bubble of intimacy that felt separate from the rest of the world. "I can't believe they turned out this perfect," Isabel said carefully, lifting a delicate purple shell from the cooling rack. "It's like my hands remembered everything Henri taught me." "They're gorgeous," Lena agreed, though she was more focused on the flour smudge on Isabel's cheek than the pastries. "Almost too pretty to eat." "We have to eat at least one. It's baker's tradition, you can't let your creation go untasted." Isabel selected 2 perfect macarons and handed one to Lena. They bit into them simultaneously, and both closed their eyes at the delicate sweetness, the way the shells gave way to the creamy ganache filling. "Perfect," Lena murmured. "Perfect." Isabel agreed, but she was looking at Lena when she said it. They cleaned the kitchen meticulously, working side by side, with an ease that felt like they'd been partners for years instead of days. When Henri returned, he found them boxing up the remaining macarons with professional precision. "Ah, magnifique," he declared, inspecting their work. "I knew your hands would remember Mademoiselle Rothschild. These are worthy of any Parisian patisserie." "Thank you, Henri, for everything." Isabel's smile was radiant. "I'd forgotten how much I missed this." "Then you must not stay forgotten so long next time we—" Henri winked at both of them. Love and baking, they both require practice to stay perfect. Back in Isabel's suite, they sat cross-legged on the carpet, sharing their macarons and watching the harbor lights begin to twinkle as evening approached. The perfection of the afternoon felt almost surreal, stolen time, in a world where someone like Isabel didn't get to steal anything. "I have to ask you something," Lena said, setting down her coffee cup. "And I need you to be completely honest." "Anything? What happens after tomorrow? I leave for Melbourne on Thursday morning and you—" She gestured vaguely toward the engagement party preparations happening elsewhere in the hotel. Isabel was quiet for a long time, staring out at the harbor. "I don't know," she said finally. "For the first time in my life, I genuinely don't know what happens next. Because of me, because of you, because of us. Because in 2 days you've shown me that the life I thought was inevitable might actually be a choice." Isabel turned to face her fully. "Lena, I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear all of it before you respond." Lena's heart began to race. "Okay, I'm supposed to marry Charles in 6 months. Not because I love him, but because our families have been planning this alliance for 15 years. The merger of Rothschild Industries and Whitmore Maritime will create the largest luxury hospitality empire in the Southern Hemisphere. I understand the business side. Let me finish," Isabel said gently. "The engagement party is Saturday. 300 guests, international media coverage, formal announcement of the wedding date. After that, backing out becomes exponentially more complicated, not just personally, but legally, financially, politically." Lena felt something cold settling in her stomach. "So Saturday is the deadline. Saturday is the point of no return." Isabel reached for her hands. "But here's what I realized today, covered in flour, and watching you watch me remember who I used to be, I would rather face every consequence of breaking this engagement than spend the rest of my life wondering what could have been with you." Lena's breath caught. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to choose you. I want to choose us. I want to choose a life where I bake macarons because they make me happy, and drink coffee that tastes like Saturday morning, and fall asleep next to someone who sees Isabel instead of the Rothschild heir." "The consequences you mentioned, how bad are we talking?" Isabel's expression grew serious. "Disinheritance, probably. Legal battles over company shares. Social exile from the only world I've ever known. Charles's family would likely sue for breach of contract. Yes, there's actually a contract. The media attention would be brutal. You could lose everything." "I could lose everything I thought mattered," Isabel corrected. "But I'd gain everything that actually matters." Lena felt tears pricking her eyes. "I can't let you do that. I can't let you destroy your life for someone you've known for 2 days. You're not letting me do anything. I'm choosing to do it." Isabel's voice grew fierce. "And it wouldn't be destroying my life, it would be claiming my life. For the first time ever." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of what Isabel was proposing settling between them. "What would we do?" Lena asked quietly. "I have $600 to my name and no job to go back to. You'd have nothing if your family cuts you off. How would we even survive?" "We'd figure it out. Together." Isabel's smile was soft but determined. "I have skills beyond being a corporate heiress. I have degrees, experience, connections outside the family business. And you have this incredible ability to find joy and adventure anywhere. We'd build something new. It sounds impossible. The best things usually do. Isabel leaned closer. I'm not asking you to decide tonight. I'm just asking you to consider the possibility that sometimes love really can conquer impossible circumstances. Lena looked into those green eyes, seeing vulnerability and hope and fierce determination all mixed together. The woman sitting across from her was willing to give up a fortune, a family, an entire identity for the chance to build something real together. It was terrifying and romantic and completely insane. It was also the most beautiful thing anyone had ever offered her. One condition, Lena said finally. Anything. Tomorrow, our last day before you have to decide, we spend it like a normal couple. No hiding, no stolen moments, no luxury hotel rooms. I want to show you what a life with me would actually look like. Not the fantasy version where we're baking macarons in borrowed kitchens, but the reality where we'd be counting every dollar and sharing tiny apartments and building something from absolutely nothing. Isabel nodded immediately. Yes, I want to see it all. And if after that you still want to choose this, choose us, then I'll be here Saturday night waiting to find out if love really can conquer impossible circumstances. And if I choose duty instead, Lena's throat tightened. Then I'll understand. And I'll spend the rest of my life grateful for 2 perfect days with the most extraordinary woman I've ever met. They sealed the promise with a kiss that tasted like lavender and honey and the terrifying sweetness of a future that might actually be possible. Neither woman slept well that night. Both lay awake thinking about choices and consequences, about love and duty, about the impossible decision that would determine not just their future together, but who they each chose to become. Thursday would be their last day together before Isabel had to choose between everything she'd been raised to be and everything she'd discovered she wanted to become. The story that would inspire millions was approaching its climax, and neither woman knew yet which ending they would write. Thursday morning arrived gray and drizzly Sydney's weather, matching the weight of the decision hanging over them. Lena waited in the lobby at 9 a.m. sharp, but this time she'd chosen her outfit carefully, her most worn jeans, a faded t-shirt, and the backpack that had carried her life for the past 2 months. If Isabel was going to choose this life, she needed to see exactly what she'd be choosing. Isabel appeared wearing designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary, but she looked nervous in a way Lena hadn't seen before. "Ready for your crash course in budget travel?" Lena asked. "Ready," Isabel said, though her voice held uncertainty. Their first stop was Lena's actual accommodation, the Backpackers Inn, a hostel 3 blocks from Isabel's luxury hotel that might as well have been on a different planet. Lena led her through the cramped lobby past backpackers, cooking instant noodles on hot plates and planning routes on torn maps. "This is where I'm staying," Lena said, opening the door to her shared dorm room. 6 beds, 2 bathrooms, 1 tiny window, $32 a night. Isabel stepped inside, taking in the narrow bunks with thin mattresses, the single shared table covered in other travelers' belongings, the persistent smell of too many people in too small a space. "It's—" she searched for words. "Horrible," Lena supplied. "Different. Very different." Isabel sat gingerly on Lena's bottom bunk. "But these people seem happy." It was true, laughter drifted from the common room, where travelers were swapping stories and planning adventures. There was an energy here, a sense of community born from shared experience and mutual dependence. "When you don't have much money, you learn that experiences matter more than comfort," Lena explained. "And you make friends fast because everyone's in the same situation." They left the hostel and took public transport, not a private car or taxi, but the actual city bus with its pressed crowds and unpredictable schedules. Isabel watched everything with fascination, how Lena navigated the route map, how she struck up conversations with other passengers, how she made $20 stretch to cover transportation meals and activities for an entire day. "For lunch, we have 2 choices," Lena announced as they got off the bus in Chinatown. $7 dumplings from this place that locals love, or $3 meat pies from a vendor cart that may or may not give us food poisoning." What would you normally choose? Honestly, probably the meat pies, because $4 extra is significant when you're living on $40 a day. But since this is our last day, let's splurge on the dumplings. They squeezed into a tiny restaurant with plastic chairs and no English menu, where Lena ordered by pointing and hoping for the best. The dumplings that arrived were small, greasy, and absolutely delicious. "This is better than most of the Michelin-starred restaurants I've eaten in," Isabel said in amazement. "That's the thing about expensive restaurants, you're paying for atmosphere and service and prestige, not necessarily better food. Some of the best meals I've had have cost under $5. After lunch, they walked through Hyde Park, and Lena showed Isabel the art of free entertainment, people watching feeding ducks with leftover bread, listening to street musicians, exploring areas of the city that didn't require admission fees. "This is what most of our days would look like," Lena said as they sat on a bench watching office workers hurry past. "Simple things, cheap pleasures, making our own entertainment." "Would you be happy with that?" Isabel asked. "Long term, I mean. Not just as a travel adventure, but as a real life. With the right person, absolutely. I've been happy with much less." Lena turned to face her. "The question is whether you could be happy with it." Isabel was quiet for a long time, watching the city move around them. "I've never thought about happiness as something simple before. In my world, happiness is an achievement, something you earn through success and status and meeting expectations. And now I think happiness might just be sitting on a park bench with someone who makes you laugh, eating $7 dumplings, and not caring about anything except being together." The afternoon brought rain, so they took shelter in the state library, free admission, comfortable chairs, and hours of entertainment browsing books and exhibitions. Lena watched Isabel discover the children's section, where she spent 20 minutes reading picture books with the wonder of someone encountering magic. "I never got to read these as a child," Isabel explained. "Rothschild children had tutors and educational materials specifically designed to prepare us for business leadership. No time for frivolous stories." "Everything you missed we could discover together," Lena said softly. As evening approached, they found themselves back at Manly Beach, taking shelter in a small cafe, while rain drummed against the windows. They shared a pot of tea and watched waves crash against the shore, both acutely aware that their time was running out. "I need to ask you something," Isabel said suddenly, "and I need complete honesty." "Always. If I choose this, if I choose you, what happens when the novelty wears off? When you realize that living with someone who's never learned basic life skills is more burden than adventure? When you get tired of teaching me how to be normal." Lena reached across the table and took her hands. "Isabel, you think you don't have life skills, but you've survived 28 years in a world that would chew up and spit out most people. You speak 4 languages. You can negotiate million-dollar deals. You can make perfect macarons from memory. You're not helpless. You're just inexperienced with certain things." "That's not what I mean." "I know what you mean. You're asking if I'll get tired of you when you're not shiny and new anymore. If I'll regret giving up my freedom for someone who comes with so much baggage and complications." "Yes." Lena was quiet for a moment, considering her words carefully. "The truth, I've never been in love before. Not real love. I've had crushes and relationships and people I cared about, but nothing like this. So I can't promise I won't mess it up sometimes, or that we won't fight, or that there won't be days when we both wonder if we made a mistake." Isabel's face fell slightly. "But," Lena continued, "I can promise that every time I look at you, I see someone worth fighting for, someone worth building a life with, someone who makes me want to be braver and kinder and more myself than I've ever been. The novelty might wear off, but that feeling, that's not going anywhere." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I've watched you discover who you are when nobody's controlling you, and that person is extraordinary. Because you're willing to give up everything for a chance at something real. Because when you laugh, it sounds like coming home." Tears slipped down Isabel's cheeks. "I love you," she whispered. "I'm terrified and exhilarated and completely out of my depth. But I love you. I love you too, Lena replied, her own eyes filling. Enough to wait while you make the hardest decision of your life. Enough to fight for this if you'll let me. They sat there holding hands across the small table, rain creating a curtain of privacy around them, both knowing that tomorrow everything would change. The engagement party starts at 7 p.m., Isabel said quietly. If I'm going to break it off, I have to do it before then. Once those announcements are made, once the media coverage begins. I understand. Meet me at the Opera House steps at 6:30 tomorrow night, Isabel said with sudden determination. If I choose this, if I choose us, I'll be there. If I don't show up, then you've chosen your family and your duty, and I'll understand. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me that if I don't show up, you won't wait. Don't waste years hoping I'll change my mind or find the courage I couldn't find tomorrow. Live your life, fall in love with someone who can choose you without hesitation. Lena's throat tightened. Promise me something back. What? Promise me that whatever you choose, you'll remember today. Remember that there's another version of your life where you're happy in simple ways. Don't let them make you forget that you have choices. I promise. They parted at the hotel lobby, and this time the goodbye felt final. No plans for tomorrow morning, no casual promises to meet for coffee. Just a kiss that tasted like goodbye and hope, and the terrible sweetness of love that might not be enough. As Lena walked back to her hostel through the rain, she felt like her heart was breaking and soaring simultaneously. Tomorrow night she would either begin the greatest adventure of her life or face the most beautiful heartbreak she could imagine. Either way, she knew that loving Isabel Rothschild had already changed her forever. The story that would touch millions was approaching its climax, and neither woman knew yet which ending love would write for them. Friday crawled by like the longest day of both women's lives. Lena tried to distract herself with typical tourist activities, visiting museums, walking through botanical gardens, organizing her backpack for the next leg of her journey, but her mind kept drifting to 6:30 p.m. and the Opera House steps. Meanwhile, 15 floors above her hostel, Isabel sat through endless meetings about flower arrangements and seating charts and media interviews, nodding at appropriate moments while her heart hammered against her ribs. Charles had arrived with her parents that morning, bringing an energy of barely contained excitement about the evening's festivities. The photographers from Vogue will be positioned here, her mother explained, pointing to a diagram of the hotel ballroom. Channel 7 wants an exclusive interview before the formal announcement, and the Sydney Morning Herald is running a full spread on Sunday about the merger implications. Perfect, Isabel murmured, though the word felt like ash in her mouth. Charles squeezed her shoulder possessively. I can't wait to finally make this official, darling. Father says the Whitmore Maritime Board is already celebrating stock prices jumped 12% just on rumors of tonight's announcement. Wonderful, Isabel said automatically, but inside she felt like she was suffocating. Every detail discussed, every arrangement finalized, felt like another bar in a cage she'd never realized she was building around herself. At 3 p.m. she excused herself for a final dress fitting, but instead of going to the boutique, she found herself walking through the city streets, retracing the path she'd taken with Lena just days before. Everything looked different now. The cafe where they'd had coffee, the opera house where they'd toured backstage, the ferry terminal where they'd caught the boat to Manly Beach. 3 days. That's all it had been. 3 days that had shown her an entirely different way to exist in the world. She stopped at the Backpackers Inn, staring up at the narrow windows and wondering which one belonged to Lena. The urge to go inside to find her, to run away together right now was almost overwhelming, but she couldn't. Not yet. She owed Charles and both their families a proper conversation, not a cowardly disappearance. If she was going to choose love over duty, she had to do it honestly. At 5 p.m. she returned to the hotel and found Charles in the bar celebrating early with several business associates. There she is, he called out jovially. The future Mrs. Whitmore, come have a champagne, darling. Father just called with news that the Singapore property acquisition went through ahead of schedule. Isabel accepted a glass but didn't drink. Charles, could I speak with you privately? Of course. Gentlemen, if you'll excuse us pre-wedding nerves, you understand. He led her to a quiet corner of the bar, and Isabel felt her heart racing as she prepared to either destroy her life or claim it. Charles, I need to tell you something important, and I need you to hear all of it before you respond. Something in her tone made his jovial expression fade. What's wrong, Isabel? You look pale. I can't marry you. The words hung between them like a bomb with the pin pulled. Charles stared at her champagne glass, halfway to his lips. I'm sorry, what did you say? I can't marry you. I won't marry you. This engagement, this whole arrangement, it's over. Isabel, you're obviously having pre-wedding anxiety. It's completely normal. This isn't anxiety, Charles. This is clarity. Her voice grew stronger with each word. I don't love you. You don't love me. We're both marrying business arrangements instead of people, and I can't do it anymore. Charles set down his champagne with the careful precision of someone trying not to explode. Where is this coming from? We've been planning this for months. The contracts are signed, the merger paperwork is filed, 300 people are gathering downstairs as we speak. I know, and I'm sorry for the timing, but I had to be sure. Sure of what? His voice was rising, drawing glances from other patrons. Sure that there was another option. Sure that I was capable of feeling something real for someone. Isabel met his eyes steadily. I've fallen in love, Charles. Really, truly, completely in love. And it's not with you. The silence that followed was deafening. Charles's face went through several expressions: shock, disbelief, anger, calculation. Who is he? He asked, finally, his voice dangerously quiet. It doesn't matter who. It absolutely matters. Some fortune hunter, I assume, someone who sweet-talked the naive heiress with pretty words and promises. Charles, how much does he want? Because I can guarantee you that whatever he's promised, whatever fantasy he's sold, the reality of being with someone outside our world will destroy you both. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Charles stood up, his composure cracking. You've been seduced by some opportunist who saw dollar signs when he looked at you. This is exactly why your parents have been so careful about your associations. Isabel felt anger flare in her chest. My associations? You mean like the association where my family sells me to your family for business advantages? That's exactly what this is, and you know it. You don't care about me, Charles. You care about the merger. You care about the business opportunities. You care about having a beautiful, well-connected wife who'll smile appropriately at corporate functions and produce heirs for your empire. And what's wrong with that? Charles shot back. That's what people like us do, Isabel. We make strategic alliances. We strengthen our positions. We don't throw away centuries of family building for some romantic fantasy. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe people like us have forgotten how to be human beings instead of just business assets. Charles stared at her for a long moment, then pulled out his phone. I'm calling your father. This conversation ends now. No? Isabel stood up, surprising herself with her own firmness. This conversation ends when I say it ends, and I'm saying it now. The engagement is off, Charles. Tonight's party is canceled. Whatever contracts exist between our families, they'll have to be renegotiated without me as part of the arrangement. You'll regret this.